Review Commission. At this time, I'd like to call roll.
Mr. Hurley?
Here.
Mr. Landwehr?
Here.
Mr. Gibson?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Alderman Owens?
Here.
Chairman Bruns?
I am here. Thank you. We have established a quorum. Next, we will approve the minutes from the February 27th meeting. Is there anyone that has a motion for approval?
I wanted to make a couple of comments on them. I'm referred to as the vice chairman. I think that's supposed to be the vice chairman.
Okay.
And I think, are we missing the votes on Avenida? I see where there's a proposed motion. I don't see what we did about it.
On which item?
Avenida?
That's this month.
Campbell Clinic.
Oh, no, Campbell Clinic. That's right. It's Campbell Clinic.
It was consent.
Proposed motion.
It's two consent items. So it'd
Okay.
be one.
Okay. All right.
You want to put a motion with that?
I move to approve the minutes with me being called vice chairman from the
Second.
last meeting.
Very good. Please call roll.
Mr. Landwehr?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
I would abstain. Thank you.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Chairman Bruns?
Yes. Minutes approved. So thank you. Item number 4 for us tonight is the consent agenda, and we have had one of our items in executive session. Item number 5 moved to the consent agenda. I know some of you out there were excited to hear the others on the consent agenda, but just the one got moved. The Health and Wellness Expo Special Events banner. Is there anyone in the audience or members of the commission that would like to remove this item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Very good. Just a reminder that voting on the consent agenda, you have read all of the material and feel that there's no further discussion needed on this item. At this time, please call roll.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr?
Yes.
Chairman Bruns?
Yes, consent agenda is approved. You may enjoy your evening. And that will bring us to item number 6. Staff presentation, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. The item before you this evening is Avenida Senior Living. The site is located near the intersection of Germantown Parkway and Wolf River Boulevard. This is the former Walmart site. Earlier this year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen entertained a rezoning of this property. This property used to be zoned C2 commercial, and it was then rezoned to RH in November of 2017. The Planning Commission then recommended an approval of a site plan, which you are going to be seeing today. As part of that site plan, the Board of Zoning Appeals acted on this property and granted 3 variances. The 3 variances that they granted are related to the building height, to allow up to 51 feet or 4 stories, to allow parking in the sides and front side yard setbacks, and then also to allow accessory structures, specifically garages, in the side yard setbacks. So these variances, along with the Planning Commission approval, set the stage for the site plan. At the Planning Commission approval, the Planning Commission recommended that the Design Review Commission conduct a thorough review of the architecture and landscaping of the project. Here you can see an aerial view of the project as proposed. As part of the proposed project, the applicant is proposing gates and a fence. It is within the Design Review Commission's purview to approve the gates and fence. As you see here, the fencing would be black wrought iron, 6 foot high, with 7 foot brick columns, which also have a 6-inch masonry cap. The gates would be right here and right here. Once you get into the site, those are 6 foot high gates. If the Design Review Commission approves the gates, the applicant would then need to coordinate with the fire department for approval of the gates prior to construction plan approval. The building consists of 162 units over 3 and 4 stories. Oops. The landscaping buffer here is particularly intensified along Wolf River Boulevard, and there is a landscaping buffer around the entire site. This is the entry view. The entry, as you might have seen on the site plan, is internal. And then this is the view of the building from Wolf River Boulevard. The facade ranges from 55% brick in the interior to 70% brick on the Wolf River Boulevard side. The other majority is cement fiber siding, as you can see here. There are 2 different types of bricks, which the applicant has brought examples there. This is another internal view of the project and a view from the southeast. This is the view across the lake, from Neshoba Lake. The garages are here with some brick and also windows. And there will be some screening to the garages with some of the mature landscaping. At the subcommittee meeting, the Design Review Commission requested that the applicant particularly take a look at the materials and also the details of the building. As you see here, there are quite a few windows and balconies, and the Design Review Commission asked that the applicant pay particular attention to the facade, especially the facade along Wolf River Boulevard, which was back here, this facade, that although the main entrance of the building is not on Wolf River Boulevard, that this facade speak to the street and have a face to the street, and that also the building have a particular character that is unique to Germantown. Those are the main points that the Design Review Commission addressed at their subcommittee meeting. The applicant did revise the application to address those comments. The applicant is here as well to present and discuss those details. This concludes staff's presentation. As I mentioned, the applicant is also here.
Thank you. And I would like to ask, I suppose, the applicant to step forward if, or whoever you feel could field questions or comments as a whole, and then we can bring in specialists as needed, or at least some more detailed questions as needed.
Rob Muirhead, Avenida Senior Living.
Very good. Not your first time here, obviously. Yeah. Thank you for that. And we appreciate your efforts in between our first meeting 2 weeks ago and now. Just to kind of frame the conversation I think we're about to have, as much as you've done that's appreciated in making that, the comments here moving forward are going to be about making this special to Germantown. Mm-hmm. What you feel, or the architects feel certainly, makes it unique to our community. And then if it's not, what can we do to achieve that? And so then I'll open up the floor either to you or to other commissioners just to share their comments, and then we'll go from there. Who would like to start?
So,
I guess question before you do, if I may,
Yep,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Did y'all have a presentation that you wanted to provide us? If not, then that's fine. We can go right into questions, but I didn't know if you had something prepared that you wanted to go through.
No, we're
Okay.
ready to go into questions. Should we bring our team up? Or?
I think so, yeah.
Might be easiest,
I mean,
and then everyone can step
Probably
up.
architects.
Yeah.
Landscape architects. And then if you could each introduce yourselves, then it would just be one and done, and shoot through it. At some point, we'll be going through the checklist and all, but I think this would be the easiest way just to get everyone talking.
I'm Katie Radowski. I'm the landscape architect on the project.
Thank you.
I'm Meg Needle. I'm the project architect.
And my name is Mark Lang. I'm the principal in charge of the project for Lord X Sargent in Atlanta.
All right, thank you all.
So I appreciate the changes that you made to the project so far, and I appreciate the additional information you provided. I expressed a concern in the previous meeting about the project being in a crucial location and not addressing Wolf River Boulevard. And the additional submittals did nothing to make me feel better about it. I acknowledge that you added the brick and additional balconies, and it does look a little better. But Wolf River Boulevard is a major thoroughfare going through Germantown. According to the design review guidelines, we have to give extra attention to those areas because your project would go a long way to establishing the character for the city of Germantown. It would be the face of the city of Germantown, highly visible. Your project is not, the entrance isn't toward Wolf River Boulevard, and I understand that. But I believe there's much more you can do architecturally or landscape-wise to make it more attractive on the Wolf River Boulevard side. And I would, the example I was using when thinking about it is Solana. I don't know if y'all are familiar. I don't even know what it's not even called Solana anymore, is it? It changed name. Right, but they put a significant amount of landscaping between the project and the street. Granted, the building is oriented toward that major street. But it's important because Poplar Avenue is a major thoroughfare going through the city of Germantown, but so is Wolf River. And your building is oriented away from Wolf River. So that puts in my mind, it puts a design responsibility burden on you. If the building is not oriented toward the road, then we need to do something architecturally or landscape-wise to make it attractive from Wolf River.
Okay. I would say in response that with Solana, they obviously have that great fountain out front, and it is an impressive entrance. For us, the context of our site really limits some of the landscaping that we're allowed to do out front, although I do feel proud of what we've done. As far as to the architectural elements, our building's really, orientated to our front entrance, from our back all the way looking to Wolf River. Is really orientated on an access to our porte cochere in the front. There are some things that we can do that our architects will speak to really engage and make you proud of what we would do on that Wolf River elevation.
Right. The level of detail in the brickwork that you mentioned, and the way that the building, as you also mentioned, works with the landscape to speak to the boulevard are specific details. And I think what we've been trying to do. Oh, sorry. Well, I believe what we have tried to do with the building is to with the orientation and with the details is to try and make the entry sequence a matter of rounding that corner and getting into the site, so that the main building entry speaks to the mixed-use walkable retail center, immediately across the street to the west, and also opens up to Wolf River Boulevard. And then the third element that we wanted to do in the siting of the building was to make it so that future residents, so that visitors, when they get out at the main entry, see too and feel the presence of the lake. That was a driving influence in working out the siting of the building. So then the next question of whether we have added enough detail to the Wolf River Boulevard facade per se, that is an item that we can, that's a matter of subjective preference, but we think that we've done a pretty good job with creating a building that speaks to what looks to me to be the context of the community. And I live in a community in Atlanta called Dunwoody, which to me is very similar to Germantown, and I believe that a balance or blending of elements that are traditional with elements that are classicizing, for example, the gable on the facade, that kind of creates a language that is, it's transitional. It speaks to the essence of residential, but then it also has elements that that speak to a slightly more in-town, if not to say urbanized context. And this building, to me, speaks, that to me is what this site and this building should or can speak to, is the way that the residential character meets with an urbanized character that kind of leads to downtown. And so the Wolf, the boulevard elevation wants to speak to residential components and also slightly larger scale, more urban ones. Now, whether we have successfully done that, I guess, is the question that you're posing.
Yeah, so that you understand my position, I don't know that it's going to be a matter of adding an architectural detail here and there for me. I can't tell you what would be the best approach for making that building more attractive to Wolf River Boulevard, or making it look like Wolf River Boulevard is not an afterthought, but that you're addressing the people who are going past your building on Wolf River Boulevard, that the view that they get is an asset to the community and not just the side of a building. But that's where I am. I don't know that a few more architectural details is really going to do it for me. It might be able to be addressed with landscaping.
Some aspect of architectural distinction that catches the eye.
Well, yeah. As the DRC, the Design Review Guidelines it refers to the references to the city of Germantown, and then there would be the dominance of the landscape, and of course the scale you can't really do anything about. That's inherent in your project, I would assume. But I look forward to seeing what it is y'all can do to improve the view of the building from Wolf River Boulevard.
If I may, this particular elevation this perspective was created to show the building, but the actual view from Wolf River Boulevard is actually the next image that shows the existing landscaping. I'm sorry, it was the next in the pamphlet. And you'll see that you don't even hardly see the building and that the landscaping is
Right.
not, yeah.
That
So
is
this is what you actually see from when you're in the drive lane.
A14.
That's correct.
That's landscaping on the adjacent property.
Correct, and that's existing.
Right, that
And
would,
those are existing trees, and so we felt that was, we didn't want to, confuse the matter. We wanted to show the improvements that we were making to our site, which is what was shown on the other. But it's from up high, looking down from across the street, and this is looking from actually driving by.
there are very few existing trees. I understand that that is a challenge for y'all. So those trees are on the property line as you're approaching from the east. I guess it would be the east.
But I think to that point also, sorry to interrupt you, Greg, is that the landscape and everything used, we would consider enhancements, not camouflage. So when
Right.
we all refer to the landscape as, well, we won't see that, or this tree exists and we won't see that angle, I would rather not speak to it as camouflage.
Sure, no, and I didn't want to represent it that way. I just wanted to make sure that y'all had a true view from the street and understood, because I think the other one is a little misleading because it's looking down.
Yeah, I want your project to be seen.
Yeah.
But
As do
I
you.
also want it
Right.
to be something that we're proud to drive by and that adds to the character of that area rather than maybe meets a standard.
We just try to treat every project as a signature product, a project for our town.
That's what makes
That's-
Germantown
that-
special, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're looking to you, what makes this a signature project of all your projects you've done? What makes this one special to us as well as to you? And that's what Greg is obviously speaking to. More brick is easy. I think the word minimum came up multiple times in our meeting. We're not looking to achieve minimums, whether it's landscape or brick or siding. We don't have an answer for you, but we're not looking for minimums, if that makes sense. Feel free.
Would you say we are at minimums?
There could be enhancements
Okay.
in each part. What I sense had happened is you hear what we say, and maybe some of us are qualified as designers in our professional careers, certainly. But in this capacity, all we can do is request what we set kind of parameters for you to design. And so if it's more brick or more stone or more, that's you as a design team, not for us to dictate. And so if you hear any of us comment to more brick, it doesn't necessarily mean more brick, it just means better, let's say. Anyone's welcome to jump in.
Well, I'll say, but I'll defer primarily to our architect, Steve. I appreciate the attempts that were made to raise the percentage of brick. I think y'all have done a good job there. I think there may be a little bit of room for some additional, but like Chairman Brunn said, I don't think that just adding more bricks makes it Germantown.
Right.
I do look, I know I looked at the Village and Solana as my keys, just because although it is not in the same proximity, there's similar character type buildings, institutional type, residential, I guess multifamily type. Some of the things that I had written down, specifically the major thoroughfare aspect and the screening is nice. I think you're going to speak to a little bit maybe about some enhancements. And I sound like a broken record, but what we don't want is something that can just be plopped in here and doesn't anywhere and doesn't feel like Germantown. And I don't mean to suggest that that's the case, but maybe, except for I suggest that just a little bit. I mean, I think, and you're right, I'm not an architect by any means. I've been sitting on this board for a number of years, and so I know what I like, and I don't, we can point you to the design review guideline manual for specifics, but details like perhaps the windows were a little plain. I think that we discussed there was some discussion about that in the meeting, and maybe that's just the view that we were looking at here. The elevation on the Wolf River Boulevard, going back to that, it looks like there was, and I really don't want to get into a lot of nitpicking here, but like it looked like there was a very utilitarian door, almost like a service door that was right there, and maybe that could be enhanced. The facade should speak to the street and be more in character with Germantown. Those are just some of the notes that I had. But again, I'm not an architect. I know what I like, and I like this to a degree. I just think there's more room.
As we add stories on projects in this town and we bring the street closer, obviously everything becomes much more important to, or the architecture becomes much more important, which is where we're moving, obviously. So we're going to look to these projects more and more difficult. You'll be the first of this sort in this scene. All the other buildings are set way back, and they meet the street. They don't have a side view of Wolf River. And so this is very important to the streetscape. And as Greg mentioned in the executive session, you were setting the standard with this building as we move closer to the center of town.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we're viewing this project.
I'll just say a few things, and I think pretty much everything that needs to be said has been said, and it may sound funny coming from the architect on the board, but I am going to talk a little bit about the brick. I do applaud you for everything you've done. I think it looks a lot better. I did have a few questions, and I might need the pointer to point out, and maybe some of it's just a clarification, and other is maybe some minor improvements that I think would be easy to achieve, but I'm not sure which slide I need to go to, Sarah, but if you could just start kind of at the original, at the front, and, oh, I've got it. Sorry, that's me. Where am I pointing? All right. Let's just start here. I know this is your entry drive, and, you know, we've got all of this brick coming up to this tower. It almost seems to me that you need to kind of bookend the tower, and then I'll go to another elevation that kind of represents this same view a little bit more to the west, though. Bookending that brick and maybe even bringing it to where the cement board starts, the white cement board starts in the middle, leaving this element as is, and then bringing the brick to the corner and then stopping. I think that kind of bookends what you've done a little bit further to the south of the porte cochere and the entry tower. And then on this next elevation here, I believe it's this one. Double check on mine. Is this the east elevation?
It's the one facing the lake.
That says east and south elevation.
Okay, that is it then.
Yeah.
So I was curious. It appears that there's a brick pilaster of sorts that is happening here, and I realize this is not a symmetrical elevation off of this gabled end here, but it appears that you've got this nice block of white cement board siding area here, and on this side, it's kind of like an L-shaped piece. It kind of doesn't play off of this centerpiece as evenly as I thought it might, but there may be an explanation. So I was looking for an explanation on why there was this vertical brick element that was happening here, but not on this side. It didn't seem to relate to anything.
There is the amenity section on the second floor there.
Okay, that doesn't explain to me why that brick pilaster is there.
Well,
But
one thing about this is that this is a U-shaped
sure.
plan. So, and really, it probably would have read better if we had kind of scaled back the rendered values, you know, where it's set back behind the pool.
Okay.
But the two end pieces have the brick, and then the pool elevation, which is set back. I don't know the exact dimension, but I want to say it's, you know, 50 to 75 feet is where that gable element is, and there's a projected solarium area on the left-hand side that is part of the amenity spilling out onto the pool deck.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the aerial or perhaps the view from the lake.
So we're, let's see.